Hallyu. The Korean wave is spreading to all corners of the world thanks to Psy's Gangnam Style and the iconic group BTS. But before the international community rode the Korean wave, there was a man who worked diligently to promote Korea to foreigners. It's CEO Kim Hyung-geun, who runs a bookstore called Seoul Selection for foreigners. This bookstore has been situated across the Gyeongbokgung Palace for 18 years, and it's a place most frequented by foreign visitors. There are about 1,500 English books related to Korea, and it's a special place which triggers the interest of foreign visitors with its vast array of magazines and memorabilia. Seoul Selection is famous as a bookstore, but also a publishing company. Until now, Seoul Selection has published 150 books related to the Korean culture and history. CEO Kim Hyung-geun pioneered a new path to promote Korea to the world through books. On today's Heart to Heart, we will learn more about Kim Hyung-geun's past, present, and the future. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us on the show today. As you are the CEO of Seoul Selection, could you give us a brief introduction of the bookshop as well as its primary tasks?
Yeah, Seoul Selection is, as you said, is a little bookshop. Maybe it was the first curated bookshop of Korea for English books on Korea. It's just located across the street from Gyeongbokgung Palace. And there are about 1,500 English titles and several dozens of Korean movie DVDs, not to mention many postcards, little postcards, they are cute.
I see.
And we are a publishing house as well. So far we have published about 150 titles
I see.
about various fields of Korean culture. And lastly, we are a translation agency. We provide translation services for private companies and public organizations.
So, I did introduce Seoul Selection as a bookshop, but it's much more than that. So you have a lot more going on. But everything seems to kind of, involve around Korea, Korean culture, everything about Korea. It seems as though these days the humanities section, there is a separate section at large-scale bookstores. Is that the case for Seoul Selection as well?
Yes, of course. We are a very little bookshop, but we cover diverse fields of interest for foreign readers. Literature, I think many of people heard about Shin Kyung-suk and Kim Young-ha, Hangang, and they are our major section.
So of course humanities books are receiving a lot of attention these days. I think it's kind of becoming a trend even.
Yeah.
Now, Korean culture has spread abroad, and I guess you could even say that it has become or is becoming a global culture as well, thanks to Hallyu, the Korean wave.
That's right. Yeah.
Are you sensing this boom as well?
Since I've been there in the bookshop since 2002, so many years passed by, and so I can tell some difference. So nowadays, many of our customers who come to visit Seoul Selection bookshop, they can speak Korean very well.
Yes.
Not just simple words as 안녕하세요. They can just command quite good, fluent Korean. Another characteristics that I find these days is that they are from all over the world. Especially they come from afar.
Yes.
I can see many Germans, French, and Italians. So many people from all around the world,
Yes.
Which I never witnessed like this much before.
Yeah, I think it's true. We do have Koreans studying abroad, visiting, countries in all different parts of the world. And at the same time, we are seeing more foreigners visiting Korea from all different parts. So I'd like to talk about the books that you have brought with you today. So you've brought several books with you. Could you begin by telling us about this book that's closest to me?
Yeah, 그래도 나는 피었습니다. Yeah,
Yes.
that's the Korean title for the book, and it can be translated into "And Yet I Bloomed." That's a story about Korean sex slaves during the Pacific War
Yes.
for Japanese Imperial Army.
It sounds like a very timely book. Could you tell us more about the book?
A 13-year-old from Mongolia to the Philippines fake factory job offer, which later turned out to be a sex slave for Japanese Imperial Army. She was taken to the war front to serve as a sex toy. It is a non-fiction fiction because it is a de facto witness story of what really happened to many young Korean girls for almost a decade.
Now, this is a very sensitive subject, of course. We're talking about comfort women, military sexual slavery. It's definitely a very sensitive issue. And I'm sure that it's not easy to, take the essence of the text, the author's intentions, and deliver it in a foreign language, in a different language. So I would like to ask you, what is it that you do to ensure such high levels of precision when it comes to translating these works?
Yeah. In translation field, we use such a term as destination language. So when you translate something, then you have to use a person who is from the country of the destination language,
Of course,
which
yes.
means in easy words, you have to hire an English native speaker. And we were so lucky to have a person named David, and his Korean language level is so much like native.
Now let's take a look at another book. Let's take a look at this book here. We have books that have Seoul written on it. This one, and then the one close to you. Could you tell us about these books? Are they the same books? Because they have the same title.
Yeah, this was the first Seoul travel guidebook that
Oh,
we
I
ever
see.
published.
Uh-huh.
And it was really popular, and as soon as it was published, it topped on the list of Amazon.com. If some book is on the top, it means that it's the bestseller in the category of Seoul.
Right. Wow, so that was the first version, and this
Yes.
would be the latest
That's
version?
that's the more latest one.
I
It was
see.
published a couple of months ago.
Uh-huh. Oh, very new.
Yeah, very new, freshly born. We reduced the number of pages.
I see.
So the former one is a little bit bulky, but we didn't reduce the number of photographs. It still has about 500 photographs.
Right.
Because we would like to show every corner and nook of the city to foreigners, to deliver a message that please come to Seoul to see them by yourselves.
So you do have a lot of pictures of Seoul, landscapes of Seoul as well.
Yes, of course.
So I understand that getting the first version together, took a very long time. How long did it take to actually put together the first Seoul book?
It took us about 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, and about 2,000 photographs were taken. We carefully selected 460 photographs.
Now, among the places listed in the Seoul book, is there a certain location that you would like to recommend to foreigners that are visiting Korea?
I would like to recommend Bukchon for visit. And the Bukchon is originally famous for Korean traditional style houses
Yes,
called Hanok.
Hanok.
Unlike other Hanok villages in Korea, Bukchon's Hanok still serve as people's home. But these days, Bukchon's Hanok is being used as offices and shops.
Yeah.
So that's why we have a so beautiful and pretty little shops in Bukchon area, especially in Gahae-dong and Samcheong-dong, where you can purchase little handicrafts.
Yes.
They are not franchised. That's the beauty point of
Yes,
those
that's right.
schools.
So Seoul Selection is located in the Bukchon area.
Yes.
It's actually across the street from Gyeongbokgung Palace.
Gyeongbokgung Palace and the Gangwamun Gate, they are the symbols of Korean sovereignty and independence.
Yes.
Especially, it was that way since the pre-modern period, when our country was under the occupation of a Japanese army and Japan. So we needed a symbol for the nation, and still, KTO, Korea Tourism Organization, says that Gyeongbokgung Palace is the most favored tourist destination for
Yes.
foreign, Western especially, visitors.
Now, Seoul Selection opened in, as you mentioned, 2002.
Yes.
And I'd like to ask you, what prompted you to open up a bookshop, Seoul Selection?
Yeah, some couple of years ago, before I opened the shop, I had a chance to go to a gathering of diplomats, Western diplomats in Seoul. And at the time, the movie Shuri was so popular.
Yes, it was a huge movie.
Yeah, so out of just curiosity, I asked them if they knew what Shuri was about. And to my dismay and big surprise, nobody knew anything about it. So I thought Koreans should do something for foreign expats living in Korea, at least. So that kind of idea kept growing and growing. And as I read the news articles about the Korea discount or the under evaluation of the country on a global scene, some years later, I made the decision to do that.
I see. So you finally opened up Seoul Selection. Are there any stories that you would like to share with us? Anecdotes from when you opened up?
Yes,
Seoul
there are
Selection?
many, but it's in the beginning stage, and not so many people, of course, coming to the shop. And one day, I found a little notice on the bulletin board in the shop. It's a post-it notice.
I see.
And it said, buy something, keep Hank in business.
Hank meaning
Hank is my Korean
you.
name, my English name. A couple of days later, another notice went up there. It said, I did.
I did. I did
So,
buy a
yeah.
book. I did purchase a book.
Yeah, they must have felt some sympathy for me, and I exchanged lots of dialogue with my customers, and they knew that I had 2 kids and a family to take care of, and he's not selling many books there, so he wanted to help, like the other customers that I mentioned before. I really appreciate.
So Seoul Selection is a bookshop,
Yes.
but it's also a publishing company,
Yes.
a publishing house, as well as a translation agency.
Yes.
So you have a lot going on here. How much of what are you involved in? Are you involved in every part of what Seoul Selection does?
From the beginning of starting my company, I just decided to take care of the company, but I decided not to get involved in any tiny details of the company because I didn't want to open a shop. I just wanted to establish a company where people work together for the same objective.
So are you not involved in the marketing, the publishing, and the
I
whole
do,
planning?
yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
do. But mostly I let my staff do that. So that's the philosophy. But this is tiny little company, so you cannot do as you according to only your philosophy. So I got involved in almost everything, but I'm trying not to as much as possible if I can.
Right. It's not easy not to.
Right,
It's
right,
not easy.
right.
Then what do you concentrate on most, especially in the publication planning process?
Most of the books that we publish are about Korean culture and history. And history and culture, perspective is very much important and essential. So I close read any material that's related to history and culture, then I usually pay keen attention to the content to see if there are any mistakes or something wrong. Yeah.
Now I'd like to talk about another one of your books that you've brought with you today. It's The Voices of Heaven. Now this is a publication that received the Independent Publisher Book Award for Best Adult Fiction ebook in 2014.
Yes.
So this is that book. So it's not only an ebook, but also a physical book.
The book is about women right. It's also autobiographic, the author's own story.
Oh.
The backdrop of the novel is from the Korean world to now. And at the time, if you were born as a twin girl, and if your other twin is twin brother, then you will be branded as bad luck.
Right.
So the two boy and girl cannot be brought up together.
Right.
So the girl baby will be given away to some other family or some relatives. And the book is about that kind of, wrong but old practice of segregating women in this country, in this Confucian society.
Yes. Now, are these books exported to foreign bookstores as well, offline and online?
Yes, of course. The Amazon.com,
Yes.
That's the biggest outlet. And also we are exporting our books to bookstores all around the world, in Berlin, in London, in Paris, in Singapore, and many other cities. But not only that, we also provide books published in Korean language.
Oh, even the ones in Korean?
Yeah, because many university libraries, they purchase them.
So how did you make your services known? I mean, because you just mentioned that universities, you're also providing your books or offering your books to universities overseas.
Yes.
How did it all begin?
So from the very moment of starting the bookshop, I began publishing email newsletter about Korean books. And I sent the email newsletter to everybody that I met in the bookshop. So
Everybody you met at the bookshop?
I collected their emails. And then the words began to spread about what Hank is doing there, down there in the basement, alone, like a mole. So foreign universities are beginning to recognize us as a dependable supplier of Korean books. So so-called best source for Korean books.
Yes, best source for Korean books.
Yes, slowly, people begin to know.
Yes. Now, as the saying goes, 10 years is an epic. I'm sure that you have, gone through a lot of changes over the years. What might be one or even a couple differences, the biggest differences that you've experienced or seen compared to then? So between then and now.
I grew old. That's the biggest change. But my clients also changed. They were so naive before about Korean culture. I mean, the depth of knowledge was not very much deep. But now they know a lot about Korea. And their demand for Korean culture is becoming very much sophisticated. Before, they were just asking about where the asking where the bibimbap restaurant is
Okay.
or where's the samgyetang.
Uh-huh.
But now they are asking where I can watch pansori performance.
Oh, wow.
Or do you have any book about Korean plants, which I don't find any in my shop or in my country either. So they are becoming very smart, and the depths and the diversity about the Korean culture,
Yes.
they are actually teaching us how to do, how to make our books with that depth and diversity.
Yes. I mean, it shows that they are not only just interested, but it sounds like they have the interest. They have the knowledge now, or much more knowledge, and I guess respect for Korea, because they
right.
want to know more about it.
Right.
They know all the stuff. They know all about bibimbap and the things that
Right.
people used to ask about.
Right,
Now they
right.
seem to be interested in many more things. I'd also like to ask you about your personal thought. What you think is the significance of promoting Korea?
In our history, millions of people died during the war. And I would like to promote the image of Korea to the international scene, because if we elevate our image on a global scene, then we could lure more foreign investment. So if we could lure more foreign investment, then it will subsequently strengthen the national security. I think that's the most important thing in our generation to do, to make peace.
And what kinds of content, perhaps, do you hope to produce in the coming years in the future?
Now I find myself more intent on historical content. So we will be more into historical books.
I see. We'll look forward to it. Because I know, I mean, the books that we have in front of us in the studio, I have taken a look at each and every one of it. And these are some very interesting books, good reads
Thank you.
for many people, I'm sure, out there. Is there a book that you would definitely recommend to foreigners visiting Korea? That's my last question.
I wonder if I take this occasion as a chance to promote my own book, but this is Ask a Korean Dude. I wrote it, and this is a collection of questions and answers about Korean culture.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and the questions are so funny. I mean, they ask why are there so many dark-colored cars in Seoul?
Ah, okay.
Yeah. On the other hand, why are the roofs of houses are so brightly painted, yellow and blue in the countryside?
Fun question, interesting question.
How do you answer?
Yeah, but questions commonly asked by people.
Yeah, and
Right.
another question that was so funny was, how could people die in their sleep? Was their electricity fan turned on?
Ah.
So not these days often, but until a decade ago, there were many news reports like that.
Yes.
Yeah, so the questions are so, genius.
Yes.
So I had lots of fun in writing answers.
Ah.
So this is a good book.
I have taken a look at it as well. So
Please.
this is a book written by Hank, everybody. And there are more questions asking, like, why do people ask you what age you are? Why are there so many coffee shops in
Why?
Seoul, for example? Very unique questions, genius questions, actually. You'll find them in that book. I want to thank you so much for joining us today on the show. I had a wonderful time, and thank you for providing us this opportunity to find out more about Seoul Selection and the work that you're doing. And we hope that you continue to promote Korea for many more years to come. And best of luck to you.
I enjoyed myself very much too. Thank you.
Thank you.
네,
감사합니다.
감사합니다.